U.S. to adhere to the One China principle, cease official interaction with Taiwan, and stop supporting Taiwan independence. The search for more victims of the Maui inferno in the U.S. state of Hawaii continues as firefighters scramble to contain active fires. The devastating wildfires have left at least 93 people dead, making it the deadliest in the U.S. in more than a century. Mudslides triggered by heavy rain have left 21 people dead in the city of Xi'an in northwest China's Shanxi province. 6 people remain missing. Search and rescue operation is continuing. 4 reservoirs in Liaoning province have seen water levels surpassing flood alarms and have started discharging floodwaters in response. Parts of Liaoning in northeast China have been battered by torrential rains caused by Typhoon Kanun. The typhoon weakened into a tropical low-pressure storm when it made landfall on the coast of Liaoning on Friday night. The province has initiated emergency response for flood control. Meanwhile, heavy rainfall will continue to lash the country's northeast, northwest and southwest from Sunday to Monday. The World Health Organization has called for swift action to deal with the surge in dengue fever cases in Bangladesh. The outbreak, which escalated rapidly since late June, has seen over 69,000 confirmed cases and more than 300 deaths since January. Nearly 2/3 of the cases and deaths were reported in July. China's Village Super League has initiated a national football tournament in Rongjiang County, Guizhou Province. Nearly 800 teams have applied for the tournament and 300 of them have confirmed their participation. Organizers have selected 30 teams for the first season of the tournament, which will run until October the 28th. And that's the news. I'm Zhu Tianlu.
Listening to a flashback of Roundtable, an in-depth discussion on the hottest topics in China.
Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Roundtable. Coming to you from Beijing. I'm He Yan. Good to have you for this ride. While big Chinese cities get the limelight, there are plenty of off-the-radar cities worth visiting. These lesser-known cities have successfully grabbed tourists' attention this summer. How to leverage a city's unique features and bring in tourist revenue. It will open your eyes to new possibilities and inspire future adventure. And we always look forward to having a heart-to-heart with you. If you have a question that you'd like us to answer, or you have something you want to say to us, please send your voice memo or email over to ezfmroundtable@foxmail.com. Your voice could be featured in our heart-to-heart segment. For today's program, I'm joined by Niu Honglin and Yu Shun in the studio. First, on today's show, the big cities and cosmopolitans in China, such as Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, in all their glory, attract attention, talent, resources, and tourist dollars, or yuan. From Quanzhou, Fujian province, to Liuzhou, Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region, and beyond, these lesser-known cities offer a glimpse into a slower pace of life, a chance to unwind, and a unique cultural and culinary experience. These not well-known cities have been rigorously pushing for their tourism industry. Now, summertime is big time for traveling. So how well have they performed so far in attracting tourists?
Recently, many lesser-known cities are showing their strong capacity to welcome tourists. Taking the city of Quanzhou in Fujian province in south of China as an example, during May Day holiday, the city received a total of more than 3 million tourists, a year-on-year increase of 95% and a recovery of 143% compared to the same period in 2019, which means in this city with population of about 9 million, if you visit Quanzhou at that time, among the 4 people you meet, one of them is a tourist. Yeah. The tourism revenue reached 2 billion yuan. That's about $292 million US. That's a year-on-year increase of 110% and a recovery of 121% compared to the same period in 2019.
Yes, and I can totally see how come different groups of people, including the traditional tourists who love to travel all around, and also the new Gen Zers who are starting to put their money into this market because they have the capacity, they have the interest, and started to visit different places. And now we see that apart from the traditionally very popular tourist destinations, may it be the metropolitans we mentioned in the first part of the introduction, He Yang mentioned, and also the traditionally popular ones like Chengdu, for example. It's not a huge metropolitan, yet it is a very, very popular city when it comes to tourism.
Right.
And also there's Guilin. Maybe for some people outside of China, you might heard of the very beautiful scene in Guilin. But there are other cities. For example, my hometown, Taiyuan. It is also kind of a big city with a population of around 5 million people. So it's kind of big city, but it's not known for its tourist resources. Yet, I would recommend these lesser known cities are still really good destinations if you like to know more about China. And apparently a lot of young people are agreeing with me.
Yes, and the thing is, if you're not from China or if you're not so familiar with the geography of China, then it doesn't necessarily immediately register with you how big or small these cities are, because the few that you mentioned, New Holland, just now, they're pretty big cities.
Yeah. Right.
But the lesser known ones that we mentioned today, that we want to introduce to a lot of our international listeners, they are quite a bit smaller and, if I may say, obscure to even Chinese people.
Yes.
And then that's why they deserve attention, because they have so much to offer, and previously, if you didn't really study the subject, you just didn't know.
Totally. When I was doing the research, actually, I recalled my experience in Europe. I had a few months living there, and it's kind of like when you're in Europe, you would visit, say, Paris in France, you would visit London, but you won't necessarily go to Dublin. No offense, I went there and love the city.
Dublin is huge.
Yeah, but it's kind of like if you only have a week, say you're a Chinese tourist, you have a week in Europe, you might not put Dublin on your list of places you want to go, let alone Ghent or Bruges in Belgium. These are a little like hidden gems. They're beautiful, they have a lot to offer, but people don't necessarily know them. It's kind of like the same situation here in China. There are many smaller cities or lesser known cities. They are quite great, but previously, due to certain reasons, people don't necessarily put them on their list or the first ones that they would go. But now things are changing.
Yes, and it's really interesting that, well, considering the Chinese context, even with small cities, they have a population of 5 million or a multiple millions. And then even, you know, in China, we don't necessarily know that much about these cities, but we will get through them. And attracting new tourists to your city doesn't necessarily mean that you need to break the bank. Identify exactly what makes your municipality attractive to others and focus on promoting the best features of your town or city with the resources you have available. Sure, but easier said than done. So how do you set these lesser known cities on the tourist map? And let's look at some successful examples.
Actually, after you've been talking about these, and that reminded me of a quite easier way to put it when you are introducing some kind of a smaller or lesser known cities to people outside of China who are just, they know a little about China, is that you know these big cities like Shanghai and Beijing. And if you want to introduce some cities like Suzhou and Tianjin, you can just tell them, okay, it's a city near Shanghai and Beijing. Then I think, and also that is kind of one of the reasons why these lesser known cities are getting popular, because these, medium-sized cities, they're more compact. And they close to kind of a bigger city, and we can get away from these big cities to these, lesser known cities to have a recreational weekend.
Hold on a second. That's major offense to anybody from Tianjin or where was the other place you mentioned? These are huge cities.
Yeah,
not as mega as, what we call first-tier cities, the 4 biggest cities in China. But lesser-known cities or smaller cities, I thought would be like, those satellite cities to Tianjin, or where was the other amazing place you mentioned?
Suzhou.
Suzhou. Yeah, like everybody knows Suzhou. Come on. And
Not.
Wuxi.
Yeah, I was trying to say that. Or we can say Wuxi. In terms of population, it's a big city with 7 million people. But,
Wuxi.
yeah.
Sorry, I'll just quickly interject. Yushun's hometown. That's the most important part.
Right. But every time that I introduce some people, even in China, some people don't know this city in Jiangsu province. They know Jiangsu province, but they don't know this city. So I would just say, okay, it's a city near Suzhou or it's a city near Shanghai, and it's a just easy way to put it.
In defense of Wuxi, everybody in China has heard of Wuxi Paigu. Wuxi's, pork ribs, and that's a great delicacy and national famous.
Let's save this part to the recommendation of all of these cities.
I think when it comes to places that are lesser known, they're lesser known for a certain reason. I feel like it's a reason for a certain period of time. For example, when we talk about Wuxi, when we talk about Tianjin, the reason that these places were not on the top places that you would visit
for international tourists.
For international tourists.
Yeah.
For at the very beginning. And also, they have a little bit of a setback or shortcomings. For example, some cities have great resources, but the transportation used to be not that convenient. It takes around 7 hours to travel there, yet you can stay there for only 1 or 2 days. It makes you feel like, nah, I do not want to go through all the trouble. Or maybe the little town is very authentic and unique and interesting, yet they don't have a lot of money to put in advertisement. So before the age of internet, actually before the age of self-media and social media and shooting a video with your own phone, actually you would have no means to know these little places. Or maybe because they have abundant tourist resources and destinations, yes, they are relatively scattered. So you would have to travel from one destination to another using around 2 hours, making your staying there a bit, too much on the road. So these are some of the reasons why these destinations are lesser known. And yet, when these shortcomings can be made up for using different ways, we see more and more people putting their attention on these lesser known cities.
Yeah, one of the obvious improvements I can see is the transportation conditions in recent years. With all of these enhancement of high-speed rail or airplane or highway networks, the transportation connecting different cities has, I think, significantly increased. And it is also forming that kind of a foundation for, these popularity of tourism in these lesser-known cities. For instance, when I was a kid, we need to visit my dad's hometown during Spring Festival.
Which is
Shandong province, north of China. And that would take us a whole night on the train from Wuxi to Shandong. While right now with the high-speed rail, it takes only about 4 hours for us to go back home. So it is a big difference, and people can actually benefit from these.
Yeah. And on top of that, I think the smaller cities or lesser known cities are doing their part, really actively putting their names out using different methods. For instance, there are a lot of traditional Chinese festivals. For example, the Duanwu Festival is closely related to one of the historical figures, Qu Yuan. And we see Xiushui in Jiangxi province, which is where Miluo River is located, actively celebrating the Duanwu Festival because sadly our historical figure Qu Yuan jumped into the Miluo River to drown himself, and also his hometown Zigui city in Hubei province. That is his hometown. So these places are being very active when it comes to the period of Duanwu Festival. They would hold a lot of different kind of activities, dragon boat races, dumpling eating festival competition. That's what I made up. Actually, you can just make the dumplings, not eating dumpling competition. But the idea is they would put a lot of work in celebrating their tradition and in promoting their cities. And there are some, I'm not going to call them made up festivals because people love the festivals. For example, in Harbin, there's the ice festival where you can see a lot of ice sculpture. It's totally a, let's say, new festival. Local people are celebrating. It's not a national festival. But there's also, for instance, the Pingyao International Photography Festival that has also made Pingyao on the map of international tourists. So, yeah, a lot of things people are doing. And when it comes to Shandong, I think Qufu, which is the hometown of Confucius, has done a great job as well.
Yeah, if you are like visiting this city, I would recommend you visit some historical, complexes in this city because it is a city, first of all, the birthplace of Confucius. And Confucius, as we all know, is the renowned philosopher and educator whose teachings have had a profound impact on Chinese culture and beyond. And I think when you're exploring Qufu, it's like, you can step back in time because you can visit all of these Confucius temples or their Kong family mansion that is a sprawling residence where generations of Confucius descendants lived. And if you are lucky, you may even have the chance to experience Qufu International Confucius Culture Festival, which is something that you just mentioned, some kind of festival that held by locals. And it can offer a lot of, traditional performances, rituals, and cultural events that basically celebrate the legacy of Confucius. And I would say it is a city embraces rich Chinese traditional culture. And if you visit there.
Yeah, and that sounds to be a timeless and also invaluable asset that one locality can monetize on. And the thing is, not every locality has this kind of rich history or cultural asset to work with, and that becomes sort of one of the difficulties that they need to overcome, just to try and find your own unique features, something to work with. And you can look into the past or look into the future, like Neil Holin has touched upon earlier, and you can create reasons for people to come to your locality. And a recent example would be Jay Chou. Well, he held 4 concerts in Haikou, the city in Hainan province. And apparently, Jay Chou holding those concerts in Haikou brought in close to 1 billion yuan.
Wow.
So that's just ingenious of the Haikou government. And also, Jay Chou went to
Taiyuan!
Yes!
Yay!
Taiyuan! And Taiyuan is hosting a whole bunch of, or will be hosting a whole bunch of concerts.
Yes.
So that's really smart of Taiyuan City as well, and people are craving for concerts in the post-pandemic era. So holding concerts, that will drive so many people to your locality and bring in tourist dollars or yuan as well. And also another way would be, let's say, host sporting events. And this was even before the pandemic when holding marathon events became a thing, and many small cities and towns have been hosting marathons for a few years now. And for many of these places, which I can't name right now, so there's even a term for it, like the marathon economy or something like that. So there are plenty of ways to do it, but finding the right way is not exactly an easy feat.
Yeah, but if we take a look at the tourist side, especially for the Gen Zers, for the young people nowadays, they are not necessarily looking to somewhere that is a place with a lot of, let's say, cultural heritage or historical sites. They are looking for something different. For instance, I know a blogger. What he did is to put around 200 cities on a wheel of fortune, and he would go to the one that the little pin points to, and he doesn't really care, or he doesn't really know what is in the city and what are some tourist destinations or attractions. He doesn't care. He will just go to the city and explore on site. And that sense of discovery and the experience of visiting different places like fresh food market, like little eateries, we call them 苍蝇馆, little fly restaurants. No, there are no flies. It's just tiny little restaurants where local people would visit a lot, and they would go to the walking streets. And they would even start a city tour, which we talked about. City walk. We talked about. See, I'm not a young person anymore. City walk. City walk in the city. Sometimes the city walk would allow you to go to totally unexpected places. And that experience is what some young people are looking for. And in that case, you don't really necessarily have to have a lot of attractions, but you do have to have a fair market, transparent market, so that they don't feel like they're cheated or conned. And also you should have some really nice local food, and all that would probably make you go viral on the internet out of blue.
And if it's not that popular, I know you shouldn't have something to say here. I'll just quickly finish this sentence. It's usually cheaper.
Oh, yeah, it's usually much cheaper and delicious.
Yes, and also in this case, I think just young people, they just have so many ideas on where they would like to go. Not only probably just a random place, or they have something they like to eat in the city. For example, what we discussed in Liuzhou City, people love or hated the smelly snail rice noodles, right? And also probably go for a concert and then visit a city. And also maybe they just watch a TV drama, and this TV drama is shoot in this city, and they would like to just, go get a kind of a visit for check-ins so that they will visit the city. An example is that TV series, which is quite popular lately, or previously, The Knockout. It has brought unprecedented attention to Jiangmen City, Guangdong province in south of China. So I think they have just so many reasons. And with the foundation is that basically each city in China has their unique characteristic that is attracting a lot of tourists.
Yes. In a perfect world of rainbows and butterflies and unicorns, I would totally agree. But also, okay, let's just put it this way. I think it kind of depends on your tourist mindset. Because you've got some people who only want to hit the tourist attractions, and to them there's like a certain level of fame, or this is recognized as a World Heritage intangible site, and then stamp, and then they regard it as a tourist attraction, and it's worth your time. But there are other tourists, like Niu Holin alluded to earlier on, that now maybe people have a different kind of mindset. It's not necessarily that I have to visit the world-renowned tourist sites, but these can be just rather everyday temperament of a place, and it's unique in the sense that it doesn't have to be fancy. It's just something very local, and I'm just here to chill and to get away from my everyday life, and that's also a kind of tourism.
Yes.
And so I think there is an interesting shift in mind in that sense. Remember decades ago when Chinese people, or like the average Joe, can get out of China and start visiting places, and then you would go by a tour, let's say visit 6 European countries in 9 days, that kind of thing. And that was when, people were like, I have to see all the world-renowned places. Yeah. But now it's more like, okay, well, maybe we're a little bit more laid back. And and also this requires a little bit of patience to discover these, like you guys said, hidden gems that are possibly never going to get like world press coverage. But you're okay with that.
Yeah, and also nowadays a new concept is getting more popular among young people. That is regarding a city as a museum. So regarding the city as a museum means that you would try to discover different facets of the city, including the culture, the history, and the livelihood of people. And you can interact with local people. And need I say, local people or just people living in big cities and small cities and lesser known cities and towns are totally different. When I was actually on a business trip in a small city in Yunnan as well as in smaller towns, including Tacheng in Xinjiang, I mean, people were ridiculously friendly and nice, and they would just sit there and smile at me, and their smiles are just so pure and friendly and lovely. And I would ask them, can I take a picture of you? If someone do that in Beijing to me, I would say, no, don't take a picture of me. But those lovely people would very shyly smile at me and say, no, I'm not pretty enough. And I would say, no, you look gorgeous. And they would just give me that genuine smile, and I would take a picture, post it on social media.
But you got their permission, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
And that is how friendly they are. And they would
Yeah.
invite you to have a cup of tea in their house. They would offer you some little delicacies they make using by their own hands, and that experience is totally unique and precious, and I would love to do that again.
So gosh, you made me really want to visit that place. And turning your city or town into a red-hot travel destination, should all cities be shooting for it? This might not even be what locals necessarily want.
I think you're totally right. Not every city has to be a famous tourist city. All you need to do is be nice and be friendly, and if people visit, great. But find your strength. If you have the resources, of course, shoot for it. But you can totally be an economically very developed city. You can be a little town that is, let's say, focusing on manufacturing stocks. You can be a place where it's just transportation is really nice, and it's a transportation hub. It doesn't have to be a tourist destination for every city. Yet, I find it very nice that no matter if it is a popular tourist city, whenever I visit it, I would have a little fun myself.
Because I think the authenticity of this city is also one of the most captivating points of these smaller cities or lesser known cities. Why people want to visit this city is because another attractive point right now in recent years is a slower pace and quiet and peaceful lifestyle.
So many lesser-known cities are often overlooked, but have so much to offer, and these cities are often eclipsed by their larger, more well-known counterparts. But we've established to you today that, next time when you're planning a trip, consider exploring the charm and allure of these smaller cities and towns. Coming up next, during the second half of the show, we will bring you this topic: will handwritten notes become obsolete? How are you? What's on your mind? Let's have a heart-to-heart on Roundtable. Ask us anything. We'll help you answer it. Send a voice memo to ezfmroundtable@firstmail.com. We'll play your question on Roundtable and talk through it on the live show. Take care. We can't wait for heart-to-heart with you.
Looking for passion? How about fiery debate? Want to hear about current events in China from different perspectives? Then tune in to Roundtable.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Roundtable. Coming to you live from Beijing.
Roundtable. Connecting China and the world.
We bring you fun and timely discussions about what's affecting our lives everywhere, every day.
Tune in to Roundtable, where the East meets the West, and understanding is the goal. You're listening to a flashback of Roundtable, an in-depth discussion on the hottest topics in China.
Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
You're listening
listening to Roundtable with myself, He Young. I'm joined by Will Holland and Yushun in the studio. Coming up, what's the best way to take notes? Paper versus digital has long been key to the debate. Now an AI-powered note-taking app is available. Is it time to put away your pen and pencil for good? And we'll have a heart-to-heart with you. You bring the questions and we provide the answers. You can get your question on the show by sending in a voice memo or email to ezfmroundtable@foxmail.com. Your voice could be featured in the show in our heart-to-heart segment. Our podcast listeners can find us at Roundtable China on Apple Podcast. Now on Roundtable as we continue today's discussion. In the digital age, the way we gather and process information has transformed drastically with the rise of note-taking apps, voice assistants, and cloud storage. Handwritten notes may no longer be needed. Recently, Google has launched its AI-powered note-taking app, Notebook LM, which promises new ways of taking and organizing notes. So, how does it work? What do you make of now AIs stepping into note-taking, such an old-school thing now?
Yeah, this new AI-powered Notes app is actually a rebranding from Google's previously launched AI-backed note-taking tool named Project Tailwind at this year's Google's I/O Developer Conference. And according to tech media The Verge, the LM stands for Language Model, which means it is an app that is still trying to give users their own personal AI and trained on their own data and notes. And you can basically ask questions about your notes or even build new things with them. And this company also offers a few ideas for things you might do, such as automatically summarizing a long document or turning a video outline into a script. But as we can see, it's still based on what you write, right? So the correctness or the fact that you get is basically still based on what you write, and we cannot basically 100% rely on the algorithm, I think. If you write down something wrong, this AI cannot help you.
I kind of understand how it is done because I myself like to take notes on my laptop, especially when I'm attending certain kind of lectures. So when I'm doing that, I can use my phone to take a picture of the presentation the speaker is using, and the presentation would be automatically scanned and inserted in my note-taking on my laptop. And then I can continue to write down words, actually typing down words that the speaker is talking about. So I get the attraction here. With artificial intelligence in place, it might help you to reorganize the structure of your note. It will help you to generate, let's say, according to the description of the app, turning a video outline into a script. You don't have to type down everything. And with the current recognition, including speech recognition and character recognition, it's totally, let's say, easy to organize everything. Yet I have this little concern because when I'm doing all those things, actually I'm multitasking. I'm taking pictures, I'm listening to the speaker, I'm trying to put things in place, and that actually hinder my attention to the actual content. And I find afterwards, if I have some extra time to revisit my notes, of course, the notes would be very comprehensive, being that I have done a good job in taking the notes. But normally I would not have that much time doing that. And that 1 hour or two would just slip over. And that is it. You have a really good, perfectly recognizable note in your iPhone that you would never open again.
That's really interesting because New Holland has very generously shared her notes with me in the past, and I was astounded by how detailed and full with illustration, i.e. photos, it was. Also, the way you organize it, I think, ideally, in theory, then if your notes are really good, and then that's a reflection of how well you've taken in all the information. But nowadays, with
everything going electronic, those things don't necessarily go hand in hand. But I have to admit that just the convenience of digital notes, it's unparalleled to what we used to have. And like after you've graduated school, all right, and we don't necessarily always have the laptop in front of us to take notes or work stuff, it's often using your phone. And then using your phone is just so amazingly convenient. Like I take notes every day, and it could be just an idea for the show, and it could be, something I just heard. I can just quickly voice it out on my phone, and then, don't copy this behavior, that's bad, because maybe you're driving, or maybe you're in the bathroom or something, and you're occupied, but then you can still use your voice and take notes. And also I remember watching Miss Americana, that Taylor Swift documentary, and then, as an artist, a creative idea just pops up out of nowhere, and then she'll just record it using her phone and then come back to it later. And, that's just so handy. But with all these benefits and a couple of drawbacks that New Holland has mentioned, do you think that maybe in the future, maybe we'll just lose the ability of writing, handwriting, maybe we only know how to type on a computer or on your smartphone, and then, calligraphy, what's that?
Well, first of all, we understand that, how important these handwritten notes are, right? But with all of these advancement of technology, right now we have all of these touchscreen devices and stylus pens, and it is kind of a way to, in the middle, that you can both have digital notes, but you are writing your digital notes. So I'm quite in favor of that kind of method, using a stylus pen on touchscreen, because it's for both paperless experiences, and you are making content electronic, and also maintains the sensation of writing, to some extent.
The sensation of writing?
Yes.
Who are you?
I mean...
And also, I was wondering, how expensive is your devices? Because I have had my fair share of writing on a tablet, and the recognition, yes, it can recognize, but the feeling of writing on a real paper and writing on a tablet, totally different. Totally different.
That's exactly what I want to say. With, more technology...
and more expensive devices.
The content you write can be, first of all, well recognized and retrieved. And then, on the other hand, you can... these stylus pens are becoming more and more... The experience of using it are becoming more and more similar to writing on paper. Maybe you can just use a tape to tape it on the tip of your digital pen to... imitate the real experience of writing on a paper. So, yeah, that's kind of a cheaper way of having that sensation, but still you can have that kind of experience.
Well, in my opinion, somehow writing on a tablet can be a little bit, it depends
slippery, I would say, but...
Yeah, and also it depends on how, let's say, well-designed the app is you're taking your note with. Because when I was in college, I majored in geology, and we had to, when we're taking down notes, actually we have to draw a lot of topographic maps, some sketch maps, and I use different colors to suggest different places in the landscape. And that's not only in the classroom. Actually, we have to travel to wild outside places and on top of a mountain where there's just nothing on the mountain but the landscape, and you have to draw in that circumstance. And I would not bring my very expensive tablet there. I would just use a notebook. But I agree, with the help of technology, I would be able to take a picture of the note I took, and then I can transfer it into digitalized notes, so that in the future you can have all of your notes from different subjects stored in your one very thin tablet, and the days of a little girl who is not very tall having a backpack on her shoulder, a really, really heavy backpack with a lot of different notebooks, that days are gone. And that is one part I can think about.
Yeah, and imagine with just one single double tap, you can erase the mistake that you made, probably even change a color.
Yeah, that is another perk of digital note-taking. That is, it's easy to erase, it's easy to edit, it is easy to find out the point you were thinking about, and you can trace back. But because we have blended in a lot of different styles of note-taking, including taking notes on a paper or writing on a tablet or typing in your laptop. And here is one scientific discovery. That is, if we compare typing into a computer to take notes and writing down things to take notes, actually we call those different kinds of note-taking generative note-taking or non-generative note-taking. If you're only taking down what the speaker is talking about, maybe when you're typing, you can type really fast. You can type in each and every sentence, which makes the details of the lecture, let's say, imprinted in your mind. And after the lecture, you'll be able to answer questions about the details, about certain figures and facts. Yet, when you're taking down notes by handwriting, actually the details would be a little bit blurred. Yet, the structure of the lecture, the idea, the main idea, and also the mind map, how things got in different places would be more clear to you. So I think I agree with Yu Shun that it depends on the aim of note-taking and also the kind of note-taking you're doing. If you're doing note-taking for a lecture, if you are trying to remember as much details as possible, or if you're having some notes about a book you're reading. Those are different types of note-taking, and it requires, or it is more suitable for different methods.
That's really interesting. I suppose, though, it might have something to do with just what generation of person you are. Because I remember, like, even when I was in college, so that would be like a decade ago, I think pretty much 90% of my classmates were all taking notes using their laptop. That was in the UK. And, yeah, I think when we were a little bit younger, then there were some longhand note takers, and then you've got the people who are like playing the piano on their laptop and making so much noise, but they can do it so quickly. Yeah, so like it depends on, you know, what you're used to, what you prefer, and I think for, you know, large swaths of the millennial generation, if not the whole of Gen Z now, maybe typing is just so much faster for them, or more of something that they're comfortable with when it comes to any kind of almost like written thing. So yeah, so now, like, even if we preach to people, say that, oh, handwritten notes have great advantages, but, you know, it's just not what people do anymore.
And one thing I have to say about myself is that the reason I resort to note-taking on a laptop or a pad more often is because my calligraphy, I cannot call it calligraphy. It does not justify the name. It's just really bad. And that is why, especially when I'm taking notes for reading, when I'm reading a book, I would not write down on the book. It's just not pretty. So I would go for the e-version of the book, and I can make the notes, and the notes would appear on the side of the book. It's all clean and tidy. I didn't even share that with friends. And that might also be a reason that the younger generation, putting lesser and lesser time in their calligraphy, resorts to laptops.
Yeah, but speaking of efficiency, we need to consider what kind of efficiency that you want. You want the efficiency of taking the notes, or the efficiency that you can review the notes. Of course, you can type more words, type more sentences in a shorter time compared with writing down it. But when you're reviewing it, a well-structured written note, I think, is clearer for you to actually review it.
I think that is a really good point, but it doesn't really depend on the type of notes you have. It depends on whether or not you have the habit to revisit it. So no matter if you're taking down notes with your pen, with your tablet, you have to always go back to it, reorganize it, and absorb it so that you don't basically waste your time being someone who's really good at taking notes, yet not someone who's really good at accepting and understanding and remembering the knowledge.
Yeah, what's the point of taking notes anyway, right? You want to learn that stuff. Coming up next, let's have a moment of heart to heart.
You ask.
We answer.
Round table. Heart to heart. This week's heart-to-heart question originally came in the form of an email, and we decided to use AI to voice it out, and we'll explain why after this clip. Dear Roundtable, thank you very much for presenting such a wonderful show. I'm Carol from Jiangxi Province. 2024 will be the big Gaokao year for me. And listening to the flashbacks of your show every night makes me relaxed and happy, meanwhile learn new things. I love your perspectives and the topics you share. This show really exists like a Haybor for me. I'm writing to you for your advice on should I major in English in college or not. I always regard myself as an English lover, and I get good grades in all my English tests. My mom says that if I major in English, it would be a bit pity for I'm a student of science. I would love to be an interpreter or be one of you guys. But I'm worried that perhaps interpreters will be mostly replaced by AI by the time I graduate from college. Do you think I should major in English? How could I become a capable and learned person just like you? And what should I do to improve my English skills in the situation that no one around me can communicate with me in English and I'm too busy to devote a lot of time in the subject? Thank you for reading my email and wish you a happy day.
Thank you very much. With the help of AI, artificial intelligence, we'll get an idea of what Carol from Jiangxi Province wants to say to us. And also in your email, which we had to shorten for time's sake, I also want to wish you a happy belated birthday. Now, have you turned 18, Carol? So,
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday.
Yeah, and, well, we used AI because Carol mentioned AI might be taking over the occupation of interpreters in the future. Well, maybe also announcers already. So, and just one thing I like to say here is that we caught at least one mistake that AI performed here. Carol wanted to say harbor, that we are a harbor for her, but yeah, you got it wrong, but that's the only thing you got wrong. Okay, I'm still worried. Okay, so guys, what do you have to say to Carol's two questions?
First of all, Carol, thank you so much for your kind words and for reaching out to us. We're so grateful for your support, and we really appreciate your passion towards radio, which is what you mentioned in your email. It truly means a lot to us. And it's quite wonderful to hear that you have a strong love for English and that you are considering a career path that aligns with your passion. So, first of all, I think choosing a major based on something that you really enjoy and you're genuinely passionate about is a great foundation or start for learning, first of all. So, if you are confused about what to learn in English major, as a person who majored in English, of course, it's pretty broad when you're saying that you are just learning this language. But of course, after you choose this major, you can still have different directions within this language. For example, you can focus on literature or translation or linguistic or education, right? You have no need to panic at your age right now, I really think. And you will have plenty of time to try to figure out what you really want to learn from this major or even from other majors.
Wow, I think that is a very informative answer because I didn't know that you can choose different directions when you're majoring in English because I'm not an English major. And sitting here using English as my working language makes me thinking about the years I spent in college. That is not very, I learned a lot of knowledge. That does not seem to be that useful because I was majoring in resources, environment, and the management of rural and urban planning. And that is the thing. It does not affect me in a negative way that I cannot work here. I'm still working here, even though I'm not an English major. So if that's your concern, if your parents are talking about a different major, and if you're thinking that you have passion in English, but you're not that sure, maybe you can try major in another subject that you also have passion with and try double major, or maybe with the knowledge in that particular area and with your passion that you can continue to learn English aside from your schoolwork, you would be able to a really good translator interpreter in that area, and that would be a really good way to go as well.
And I think what Niu Honglin just said is particularly relevant because Niu Honglin was also a student who took the science route. So, but your English is so good. And that's one thing I like to highlight here because, again, survivorship bias. Because not everybody is as smart as Niu Honglin. And not as everybody is like so good at, go ahead. No, just take it all in, you deserve it, girl. Not everybody is like good at science and English, So there's that.
But there's another thing that I feel I'd like to share personally because growing up, I am someone who's good at public speaking. And thinking about if I'm not working here in this organization, if I'm working in a designing facility, trying to draw maps for let's say city planning, public speaking would totally be a strength. And now it's just my work and trying really hard to improve it. And compared to my very capable colleagues, it's just, barely enough for me to use in my everyday work. So when you say you love English very much, it makes you happy, it does not necessarily have to be your major. It can be something that you love very much, that can be one of your strengths, that can be your wow factor. When others see you, they would see you as someone who's really good at your subject and also with the amazing ability of a foreign language. So it really depends.
Great. And I think you guys have both sides covered, so I can speak my true mind. Yes, I think I will replace interpreters in a decade. This is just me, so you don't have to believe me, okay? I only represent myself, not the industry. And the occupation may disappear, but the necessity of learning English will not. And learning another language is being engaged with another culture to understand and learn by heart the history, art, economics, and everything it entails. And you start to understand how those people speaking that different language think and what is the logic behind their action. And that's essential to international exchange and cooperation and making this world a more connected place in the future. English is the world language. The most advanced information and knowledge are often in English. So mastering English is the most important tool, aside from coding, in my opinion, to survive in the 21st century when AI is taking away some jobs and creating new ones. And we don't even know what kind of uncertainty is raising its ugly or maybe positive head in the near future. And given all that, English, in my opinion, is just a tool, not your goal. Unless you're super gifted, talented, like Niu Honglin, or, committed, and you think you can become the best of the best, and maybe you can. In English or any other given area, you'll always find ways to success. Even in interpretation, when I say that, as an occupation, it's most likely going to disappear. I mean, if your translation abilities are so superb, like that of Xu Yuanchong, you'll always find work. There's always going to be a place for you. Also, let me just say, an English degree alone probably won't bring in a lucrative paycheck.
just so that you know. And if you're okay with that, go on and pursue your passion. I mean, be prepared that you might need to get another degree or some other training in a more specific discipline or something like that. But also, you know, in the future, we're all going to be constantly learning on our jobs, and we're probably going to have multiple jobs in our lifetime, which means lifetime learning is already something that we just all have to get used to.
Yeah, but I think the ability to understand and interpret not just words, but the emotions and the intentions behind this language is a unique skill that I think AI may find struggle to replicate fully, you know. Aside from just translating these words, we also need that kind of qualities like cultural nuances, like context and emotional understandings. These are the things that incredibly complex and challenging, I think, for AI to replicate. So I think, of course, with the technology of artificial intelligence, the job of interpreter will not be as highly needed as before, but I think the existence of this job is still needed. And I think embracing this technology as a tool that can actually enhance your ability rather than just view it as a threat. I think it is the way to treat it. And who knows, maybe your dedication and expertise in this field might even contribute to shaping how AI and human skills work together in the future, just like what we are using it right now.
Yeah, and a little anecdote. I recently purchased a speech recognizable headset, and it can take down notes, and I didn't like it. It's not accurate as I imagined, and the translation was not really good, so I returned it. So we still have a little bit chance, I guess. And also, we only have so much time, so we need to quickly answer Carol's question. That is, when you are not living in a English-speaking environment, how do you create it yourself?
Create enough input, I think. And we've answered this kind of question before using a lot of music, TV series, just create an English-speaking surrounding so that you can immerse yourself into that kind of environment.
And always actively use the new things you've just learned. You learn a new phrase, a new word, use it in the next sentence you use to say to people, and you can try reciting different things. And actually, for someone who has no experience studying in a overseas country, in my school years, I can tell you it's actually fine. As long as you create the environment for yourself, you can totally get there. If you like what you hear, please send your question or comment to ezfmroundtable@foxmail.com. And that brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you so much, Liu Holin and Yu Shun, for joining the discussion. I'm He Yang. We'll see you next time.
Are you interested in learning Chinese?
I always tell my students that listening is the key